partake of the goodness that you have for them. Thank you for what we've done so far. We just give you glory. We know you are here, and when you are here, there is fullness of joy, and there is life forevermore. So thank you for that, Lord. And my prayer, as your word has said, in all you're getting, get wisdom, because wisdom is the principal thing. So Lord, I pray that you help us to get wisdom today in the mighty name of Jesus. And this wisdom we get from you, we'll be able to apply it for the benefit of our families, for the benefit of our children, in the name of Jesus. Thank you, Lord. We pray that you speak through each and every one of these speakers so they will be a blessing. Season their speech with salt so it will impart grace upon us. In Jesus' name we have prayed. Amen. Praise God. So today we're going to start the seminar, and it's going to be in two parts. And also for you to know that you also there will be refreshments provided during the course of the program, so you will not be too hypoglycemic by the time we are done with the program. So please note that also for the attendees, and for the children also who are staying, there will be some provision for them also. So the first part will be the parent seminar, and that will be by Julia Odelowo. And the second part will be the question and answer, and I'll introduce all those who are going to take part. But just a few things about the speaker. Like I said very briefly, she has been involved in education for more than 20 years. So she has more than 20 years experience in the educational sector. She has a Bachelor of Arts from Cal Poly and a Master of Arts in International Education Policy from Harvard University. And she's also been, among other things, a former admissions officer, or an admissions officer at Stanford University, which we know currently is the #1 ranked university in the United States. She's also held administrative positions at multiple high schools in the Bay Area predominantly. And these are the kind of schools that, you know, those Bay Area millionaires and billionaires send their children to. So she's going to be giving us the things that these people know and the information they receive. So, and I want you to know that pretty much everybody who attended the seminar last year, I'm not saying it's because they attended the seminar, because, you know, there was also work being done for them. But I want you to know that every single one of those children, high school children who attended the seminar, are in a 4-year college this year. And it turns out, very interestingly, I will get you a little picture to show you during the course of the slide meeting, because they reside in Austin. You know, Julia and Dikbo reside in Austin, and they had gone to watch one of the games at University of Texas. And then, lo and behold, right there in the bleachers were two of our students, former high school students, who attended the seminar last year, and they ran into them in the bleachers at the University of Texas. So it just tells you that it's a small world, but there is a blessing to us attending these seminars, and God will help us as we do so. So I invite Julia Odelowo for the presentation. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be with you today. Thank you for the invitation to return. Last year was such a just a delight to be with the students and to come back in the spring last year and celebrate with those students, and then for us to run into two of them just last week was a reminder that God is good and God has plans for each and every one of the students here and who have gone through this program. So I'm happy to be here and just wanted to share with you some of my experiences, some of the things that I've learned throughout my career. And our plan for today is, many of you may be attending college workshops by admissions officers. I used to do these throughout the country. When I worked at Stanford, I traveled through Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Minnesota. Those were my states that I would read applications. So you may have admissions officers coming to you, and I think those are great sessions to attend, and they'll be able to give you really current, up-to-date information from those schools. But one thing that's different about what I hoped we will do together today is to ground this knowledge in our faith and to really remember that whatever the admissions policy is for the school that we want to go to, that God is in control. And so if we just remember that we rest in God's promises, that we can be assured that he has a purpose and plan for each one of our students. So that's my prayer today, and my prayer for your children as we go through this. Let's see, if we could go to the next slide, plan for today. I want to talk a little bit about different types of colleges. We hear a lot in the news about a few schools, schools that we see on sweatshirts and, in the news and things like that, but there are so many different types of schools and so many different campuses, and really, I believe, lots of different schools where our children can succeed. So I want to just open up that range of possibilities for us today and invite you to be thinking really broadly about where you and your child might be successful. We'll talk briefly about what colleges evaluate in an admissions application. So we'll go through the different pieces and how schools would do that, how they would look at an application, a few strategies for success, and then I think the real heart of the program is the time that we'll spend together with the panel. And we're here today with 3 unique but complementary experiences to share knowledge and answer your questions. So we don't want you to leave with questions today. I'll stay after. I'll share my information. And students, I really encourage you, whether you're a senior right now or younger, to take my email, and happy to connect with you there. So as we talk a little bit more, I shared with the students yesterday that when I was a college senior, I knew a little bit, and I had worked really hard, and I was excited about college, but I didn't have a lot of information. What I didn't tell them yesterday was I actually had to go to the library to apply to Cal Poly because we didn't have the latest version of AOL to actually submit my application. So that's the time of that's the decade in which I was applying. But really, it was a time where I was filled with a lot of anxiety. I didn't know what was ahead. But what I did know that was God was in control. And so my family, we really committed that college search. And despite not knowing a lot, I was able to, go to a school that was actually my last choice. Didn't want to go to Cal Poly. My parents had gone there, so of course I wasn't going to go there. But it was ultimately, it was a financial decision. And because we had prayed over it, because we had committed that to the Lord, I felt really confident moving forward. And it led me to be a tour guide on campus, and it led to a career in admissions and a chance to really have a rewarding career. So because I stayed open, because we committed that in prayer, I really believe that there were many blessings that came from that. So that's my prayer too, is as your children stay open, as you as parents stay open, that God will reveal that place that he has for you that you might not even know about yet, or might not be on your radar as your top pick, but it's God's pick for your family. So that is just a little bit about me, but it's a real blessing to be able to share about that. So some promises that God gives to us that I just want to remind us all of. In Proverbs 16, it says, "Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and your plans will succeed." Colossians 3 tells us, "Whatever you do, work at it with your whole being for the Lord and not for human masters, because you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as your reward is the Lord Christ you are serving." And Galatians tells us, "Let us not grow weary in doing good, because at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." Seniors, do not give up. You will reap that harvest. We will come back in the spring and we will celebrate, and we will look forward to all that God has for you. So we are claiming these promises. We are claiming Jeremiah 29 over you, that God knows the plans he has for you. He has plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. So let's rest in those promises. Let's remind ourselves of God's goodness and his purpose and plan for us. And as we think about different types of colleges, like I said, there's many that we hear about in the news. We see the football games, and we hear about a few schools that have a lot of attention on them. But the reality is that there's 3,600 universities and colleges throughout the United States, four-year schools, and many more two-year universities, as well as campuses internationally and beyond that students can take advantage of. So when you're thinking about different types of colleges, there's public, there's private schools, there's schools in-state, out-of-state. We talked a little bit yesterday with the students about the location having an impact. So as you're thinking about different schools, do I want to live in an urban environment? Do I want to live in a more rural type of community? Do I want to live in a town that's known as a college town? That'll be different than going to a school like, say, BU, which is located in the heart of a city. And so just thinking about that environment, not just the campus, but the environment that surrounds it can really play an impact. There's women's colleges, men's colleges, HBCUs. There's schools that focus more on research, liberal arts campuses, and there's faith-based schools, arts colleges. There's a book that's called Colleges That Change Lives. It's a great resource. It features 40 different schools that are not name brand schools that we don't get a lot of recognition in the news, but have fantastic results for their alumni. So these are schools where they have excellent programs, very dedicated faculty, attention to their students, and great results. My friend's daughter attended one. She went to Hendrix College in Arkansas, and when she showed up for her campus tour, it said, "Welcome Bailey Wallace." She had a parking spot reserved for her. And that was just a taste of what those next 4 years would be, because she was really, she got a lot of attention. Her faculty really knew her well. They cared for her as an individual. And she, when she was a senior, was looking for a job in a particular field. They had an alumnus visiting who was a graduate of Hendrix College that the school administrators knew would be a good fit for Bailey. They made sure she was the one that gave him the campus tour. They set up time for her to connect with him, and that led to really great results down the road. So it was that attention to detail. She's now living in Boston and pursuing things that she's very excited about, and it was because of those opportunities at Hendrix that led her on that way. So I'm really proud of Bailey for, opening up her mind to schools that she didn't know about, taking a risk, going and touring and finding out, wow, this really is a place for me that I can be successful. I like the students here. I like the style of teaching. The environment seems like a good fit for me. So just keep your mind open, I think, is what we want to talk about when we talk about different types of colleges. But when you're students, when you're thinking about you particularly, you might go on a campus tour with a friend who's sitting next to you today, and you'll have two very different perspectives on that, and that's okay, because you're two individual people, and God has unique gifts that He's given you, unique opportunities and ways of viewing the world. So it's great to go and visit with friends to talk about campuses, but really at the end of the day, this is your future, this is your 4 years to spend, and to really focus on that. So think individually about, what are the types of majors that I want to study? What is the style of teaching that really works for me? Do I enjoy a lecture type environment where I can kind of sit, be a little bit anonymous and take notes? Do I like interacting with faculty? Do I like having those more individual conversations? Is that going to be important to me? What about the location? Do I feel like I want to be closer to home? Do I feel like I can go a little bit farther away? What about that city environment, etc.? There's special programs that you want to think about. So if you really want to study abroad, ask those questions, find out what opportunities are available at your school. Sometimes they'll have designated programs where, for example, at Stanford, they have a program where they take a group of students every year to South Africa. They take another group of students to, different campuses, and then you can also go to lots of different places. Some schools will say, yes, you can study abroad, and here's, all the different options, but we don't take a group of our students all together. Neither one is good nor bad. It's just what would be interesting to you. What are the types of experiences that you want to have? Think about music and art and other interests that you want to pursue, and can we be able to do that? A great surprise to me at Cal Poly was I did marching band in high school. They had a great band in college. It wasn't even something that was on my radar that I wanted to continue, but once I got there, I realized this was a great way to make friends and stay active, and so that was something I got to pursue and continue, and so I'm really grateful for that. So sometimes, you don't even know to ask those questions, but those opportunities are there.
I think a really important question, and one certainly for my family, is this a match financially for our family's budget? So I encourage you, parents and students to have those honest conversations and think about what it is that's going to be the right fit for us in terms of private school, public school. At a private school where the tuition might be a little bit higher, are there merit scholarships? Is there financial aid? Are there ways that we can make this work for our family? And then students, imagine yourselves, if you're visiting campus, imagine yourselves as a student there. Can you see yourself being happy and successful? Does this feel like the way the students are interacting with one another, does that seem like it's a good fit for me? My sister went to Texas A&M. They say howdy every time they pass someone. Is that something I want to do? Or am I, when I go to NYU and people are hustling and bustling and in the middle of the city, maybe that's more your fit. And that's okay, but really pay attention to those types of things. I like to look at the bulletin boards and see what are the activities that are coming up. What are people excited about? What's happening on campus? Do people stay on the weekends, or do they go off campus and do things? What will that experience be like, not just during the week, but also on the weekend? It's funny, I say this a lot, does it feel like the right fit? And when I started to learn about fit and campuses, I had already done that college search for myself, right? I was now working in my career. But Deepo and I were looking at schools for elementary schools for our son, and we went to this one school and we thought, oh, this is so sweet. Looks great, the campus is beautiful, everything's wonderful, but let's go look at one other school in our neighborhood. We went to the other school, and as soon as we got on campus, we walked into the library. I said, I don't know why I'm tearing up, but I just feel like this is the right place. Like this just feels right. And so I'd never had that experience myself. I talked about it so many times with other students, but it was really, really exciting, and it's been a great place for them to grow in their first few years of elementary school. So I've experienced it now. I can say, yes, if you're really committing those things to prayer, my prayer is that you will feel in your spirit that God will lead you to those campuses that are going to be a place where you can grow and flourish and follow him and take advantage of all those things that he has intended for you. So I believe it's there, and I've seen it, and I'm excited to celebrate it with you. And so, as we're thinking about this college search, one thing I want to really encourage the students is to take the lead here. So if you want to go on a campus tour, you get on the website, you find out the dates, coordinate with your parents, make sure that those dates work, but take those steps to really take the lead, because in a year from now, when you're on campus, you're going to be the one who's figuring out how to do laundry, who's managing your meal plan, who's doing all of those things. So these are opportunities for you to practice now and to really show your parents that you are responsible, that you can do this. Your parents are there. They are there to love and support you and guide you and go with you on the tour, but we really want to see you taking those leadership opportunities. And my word for parents is, let them do it. I know sometimes we want to help, or we think that it would serve them well if we could take that off their plate so they can do other things, but really do allow them to have those opportunities to demonstrate to you that they can take that responsibility on. This is a time to practice and to really transition into those moments of adulthood. And parents, I think too, just keeping an open mind. There's so many schools that I don't even know about or haven't visited that a lot of us just aren't familiar with. But as your child is exploring and learning and finding out about new schools, it could be a really great campus. So just keep your mind mind open, bathe it in prayer always, and I believe that God will reveal to us what it is that He has intended. But that's something that can be really helpful. Want to talk a little bit about how colleges evaluate an application. I think it's helpful to have a sense of, I work really hard on this, I send it in, but what happens at that next step? So there's really two different types of admissions processes that happen. One is a formulaic review, and the other is a holistic review. Holistic review is typically what you're hearing about in the news when there's been a lot of attention, particularly last summer, about how schools review applications. But it tends to be that larger schools, public universities, are using formulaic review, And schools that are looking to bring in a diverse class of experiences and talents and things like that are taking a holistic review process. So more of your private schools, and that's how Stanford read it. So Cal Poly, where I went to school, has a formulaic review. So when I applied, I entered my courses that I took, the grades that I got, and my SAT scores. I also entered information about my activities, how many hours I spent on those, and Cal Poly has a way of selecting students where they take all that information and they run it through a system, and then students who fall within that range of acceptance are admitted to the school. So it's more based on numbers and looking at some of those major factors that the college has identified. These are the factors for success, right? So University of Oklahoma, University of Georgia, they're gonna say, okay, these are the factors that we wanna see, run it through the system, and then students will be accepted through that route. It's a very successful route. Those indicators, how you've done in your classes, are a great indicator of how you're going to do in college. So that's a great way to review it, particularly when you have that many students who are applying to a school. So that is a time when your success in your courses and your test scores are really going to help and be an advantage. When you get to holistic review, again, your success in your courses and your test scores and what you've done on your transcript are really going to be the foundation of the application, but it's going to be additional factors that are also taken into play because the majority of students have those grades, have those scores, but there's other aspects that the school is looking at. So in a holistic review, the goal is to enroll a class with lots of different interests, backgrounds, ways of viewing the world. They want to make sure that they have enough students to pursue math and science. They want to make sure that they have a French horn player in the orchestra. They want to make sure that they have students represented from every state, different countries. So they're looking at all of those different factors and really trying to pick a group of students who are going to be representative of their entire pool. You don't necessarily know all of those things when you do a formulaic review, although oftentimes you do get a great result in that diversity as well. So with the holistic review, your academic record is always going to be primary, but it's just one aspect, and typically those applications are read by an admissions officer, so for a region. So I mentioned I had the upper Midwest when I read for Stanford, so I would go to those regions. I would travel through. Sometimes when I meet someone from Minnesota, I'll say, oh, what high school did you go to? They're like, why are you asking me that? I said, maybe I've been there. And it's oftentimes really fun to talk about those things. So I got to know the counselors at those schools. I would meet the students and then have a chance to review those applications later. It's helpful because you can see trends, you know what types of courses are offered at different schools, and you know about those opportunities in that environment that the students have grown up in. So that's a little bit about holistic review. What's interesting in Texas is we have some legislation that gives us kind of a combination factor at our public universities. So we're so fortunate in Texas to have great public universities here, and so many of you are likely considering those as your next step. And so with the Texas legislation, the top 10% rule, students, I'm sure you're very familiar with this, but it's the students who are ranked in the top 10% of their class have automatic admission to Texas public universities. It is the top 6% for UT Austin, of course. But it doesn't mean, if you're not in that top 6%, it doesn't mean that you're not going to UT. It just means that you don't have that automatic admission, right? So you know you're guaranteed that top 6%. Otherwise, you would go into holistic review. So now those factors that I talked about before, your interest, your leadership, your essays, all of those factors are going to be considered, and you can then be accepted through that holistic review. So it's really important to give a lot of care and attention to that if you're not in that automatic group, to put all your best efforts forward in that area so that you might gain acceptance in that the holistic review for UT if you fall outside the top 6%, or A&M, other campuses if you fall outside the top 10%. So there's different pathways to those Texas universities, and I think that's what's really important to think about. Is it's not I'm not out just because I didn't get in that group of students. I have another pathway to it. So just to go over a little bit more of that holistic review, when I would read applications at Stanford, I'd have a pile for each day. We had just moved to online at that point, so I had an electronic pile, and the admissions officer said, I kind of miss seeing my physical folders move from one stack to the other, but I don't miss lugging them around. And so I was very glad to have the online system. But what we would do is we'd start with the online application. So students, you know this very well. You're probably using the Common application as well as the Texas application. But I would learn a little bit about the student, their family, where they live, where did they go to school, and a little bit about their activities. So I'm starting to get a sense of, okay, what type of community is this student living in? Do they speak any different languages? Are they an only child? Are they one of 8 in their family? Those are different types of experiences. So I'm trying to just get a quick understanding of the student and who they are and where they come from. And then I would spend the majority of my time on the transcript. So I would go to their transcript. If I was familiar with the school, I probably wouldn't read the profile because I already knew the school well. But if I didn't, I would look at a high school profile, and that's where the school would list, these are the classes we offer. And I'd pay attention to what are those most difficult classes that they offer and which ones the student took. So we don't expect you to take every honors and AP class at your high school. That wouldn't be healthy, nor would it be possible. But we are expecting to see you take some of those hard classes, right? And to challenge yourself in certain areas. So I would try to understand where is it that you're really pushing yourself? Where is it that I think I'm seeing those interests emerge? And then how are you doing in those classes? So it's not just the grades, it's not just the GPA, it's also what types of classes you're taking. So you know, if I'm really pushing myself in math, you know, I want to understand that and see your path. If I'm really interested in the humanities, I might see more of those courses on your transcript and try to get an understanding of that. So looking at both the level of courses and then your grades within those is helpful to understand. Many schools have gone test optional, but standardized test scores can be a factor that schools are looking at. So my recommendation is to take those. Do it once in the spring of your junior year, do it again in the fall of your senior year, and then you know, you can take the best of those scores and submit them to the schools where you think it's going to be helpful. So if a school is test optional and you're not in that, you know, at least mid 50% range of the scores, your score isn't going to help you, so it's not recommended to send it if you don't have to. But if you're within that range of scores where they're accepting students, then by sending your score, you're saying, hey, I also perform at this level. I'm also of the caliber of student in terms of test scores, at least, where you know, you're admitting many of your other students. So you want to think individually about each school and which ones are going to be beneficial to send your scores. It's definitely not the only factor, but it can be a helpful piece of that. When an admissions officer is looking at your application holistically, they're also looking at activities and leadership. I saw many students who were involved in the service today on the filming the service, playing in on the worship team, leading classes. Those are activities. Those are leadership. That's a way that you are giving back to your community. So that should go on your resume. Many of you might work in a job or do a sport, things like that. Those all go on your resume, and they're an important way for us to understand how you're spending your time and how you're you know, developing as a leader and a community member. So as you progress through those years, you know, take on those leadership roles, you know, do things that you're really interested in. I don't think it's advisable to do a club or do a sport just because it looks good for college. I think what's really beneficial for students and for parents to support you in this is to pick things that you genuinely enjoy, that you want to do, and you're naturally going to want to pursue that, to succeed in it, and it's going to be rewarding for you as a person. That's the most important part, right? It might also eventually look good on a resume, but that's not the end goal. Getting that acceptance, that piece of paper, that's not what we're here to do. What we're here to do is to find activities where we can develop, where we can become role models in society, and from that, I think the extension of that is that it can also be something that colleges look at, but that's not the only way that we're making our decisions and our life plans there. Let's see, the essay. Up to this point, students can look, a little bit different, right? We're starting to get a picture of who they are, where they live, what they're interested in, the types of classes that they do, but it's not until their essay that we really get to hear from them and to understand their voice and what they're interested in. So this can be something that really sets you apart, helps us understand what you care about, what's interesting to you, and you can take this 1.5 pages to really express yourself in a lot of different ways. So there's a lot of advice out there about writing essays, and there's a lot of books that you can read. My best advice is not to think about the topic or the question, but to think about what you want colleges to know about you. So what are those 3 things that you think are most important about you, that set you apart, that make you different? And then how can we find a story to tell or a way to weave that into an essay that communicates that? Because at the end of the day, what I'm really most concerned about is, what do colleges remember about you? It doesn't matter what the topic is. I told the students yesterday, you don't have to write an essay about hiking Kilimanjaro or finding the cure to cancer. Like, that's not what they're interested in. What they'd be more interested in is what you did when you got a blister and you were starting to get, oxygen deprivation on a hike in your own neighborhood, right? It doesn't have to be Kilimanjaro, but what is it about your motivation, your determination? Why are you on the hike? Who's the friend that's with you? What do you think about when you're on that hike? What are your, you have pink laces in your hiking boots because they are from a friend and you did this activity together and this is a way of remembering it. Whatever it is, those are little pieces of who you are that I start to remember. Oh yeah, remember the girl with the pink laces? And she, she finished the hike with the blister, and those are little anecdotes that really stick with me. If you were here last year, you might remember I said the best essay, most memorable essay I ever read was about getting ready for school. We all get ready for school. Some of us in a more rushed manner than others, but we all get ready for school. But this student had 7 younger brothers and sisters, and he was the oldest, and he said, if I get 2 minutes in the bathroom by myself, that is a really good day. If my toothbrush isn't wet, that means my little brother didn't use it. That's a really good day, And then he talked about, I'm putting waffles in the toaster, and I'm pulling them out, and I'm putting more waffles in the toaster. I mean, I'm getting a real picture of what it's like, the leadership that this young man has, the minivan that they're driving to school in, and the different drop-offs that they're doing. I'm starting to understand it. Wow, like for him to even just get to school in the morning is a huge accomplishment, I'm not expecting him to be the captain of 15 different clubs. I mean, he's the captain of his own, family and siblings. And so I remembered that student, and I remembered that he had a sense of humor about how he approached things, and he made me really like him and root for him. And that's somebody that you want to be as well. But you have a unique story to tell. Somebody yesterday said, well, what should I write my essay about? I'm not that interesting or special. And I said, okay, well, first of all, that is not true. Like, I know that right away. And I said, well, let's talk after. Within 3 minutes, we found 4 things that I was like, that's so interesting. I want to know more about that. Let's talk about it. So that's actually one of my favorite parts of this is uncovering those things with students that they might not think are special, but are really, really tremendous about them. So I'm always happy to do that, and I'll share my information after. Recommendation letters are helpful, so your teachers might, you may be asked to request teacher letters of recommendation. I think if you're a younger student, you can start planting the seed now by being attentive, by being on time, by having a spirit of excellence in what you do. But really, simple things like saying thank you, showing appreciation to your teachers go a long way. And when it comes time to request them, ask in person first. Don't just send them the online request. Look them in the eye and say, it would really mean a lot to me if you would do this. And I think that can be really helpful and meaningful to a teacher. But pick people who know you well. It's not about their resume or what accomplishments they have. It's more about can they tell those stories about you? Can they talk about a special project that you did? Can they talk about ways that you've really been a good classroom leader or contributor or helped mentor another student who is struggling. Those are the people who can write letters that really stand out. There may be other factors that come into play as well. Some schools look at legacy admission, so if your parents attended that school, that can be a factor in your application. You may be a really tremendous athlete or musician or theater actor. Those are all factors that the school, if they really need students in those particular programs, they're going to pay special attention to that. And so those are just things that also add to your application. Certainly happy to talk about any questions you might have about it. But one thing I think isn't talked about a lot, there's a lot of news stories written about how selective colleges are, and it can lead to some anxiety going into the process, certainly. And that focus is really on where you get accepted, right? And that's what the colleges decide. So we don't have control over who gets accepted, but students control 3 out of 4 of the steps in this process. So if you can remember that, you decide where you look, right? Colleges are sending you all kinds of mail to try to get you to come and tour their campus, right? They just want you to look. They want you to apply. So they're all, sending you emails and text messages and having people come after you to really get you excited about their campus, because they're not in control of that, but you can decide where you want to apply. They're going to make that decision about who gets accepted and who doesn't. But the last decision, and we used to be on pins and needles after those acceptances went out, is where you ultimately attend. So schools, once they send those acceptances out, again, they're not in control anymore. You are, and you get to make that decision about where you go to school. So I know there's a lot of focus on who gets accepted and who doesn't and why, and there's different reasons for every school and every student. Usually the reason is there were just more really great students than we had spots for. It's not because you did anything wrong or didn't do something that you were supposed to. You did all the right things. There just weren't enough spots for all the students who could be successful there. So don't take it personally. I know it's so hard. And you can have a wall where you just put up that letter that, put an X through it, and I don't want to go there anyway. But really, there are so many campuses that would just be thrilled to have you. And I just think remembering that can be helpful as well. 3 winning strategies for students. 1, choose appropriately challenging courses and work hard in them. So we're not going to do more than we think is going to be a good fit for us, but do challenge yourself appropriately and then work hard once you're in those courses. Number 2, participate in activities you enjoy, and then find opportunities to lead where you can. That doesn't always mean being the president. It could be leading an activity that then is a really great, interesting story later down the line about that's a really great story that you can write in your essay about, hey, I planned this activity and here's what went right, here's what went wrong, here's how I learned from it, those types of things. But do things that you genuinely enjoy and then find opportunities to lead. And then the third is focus on being prepared to succeed once you're in college. It's not just about getting there. So we don't want to put all of our attention just on getting the acceptance. What we're really trying to do is use these years with your parents to prepare you to be successful once you get to college. So learn how to do your laundry if you don't know how to do that yet. You be the one to register for the college tour. You be the one to, ask your teachers for recommendations and have some difficult conversations along the line if you need to do that as you're navigating through. Get your parents' advice. This is a really special time where your parents are with you the majority of your time, can share their wisdom with you, but also we want to give you that chance to start spreading your wings and doing those things. So that's for students. Quickly, I guess I had more winning strategies than I thought. The next slide, I would say 6 to 10 colleges. You want to pick, more than that. It tends to be diminishing returns, and you're spending a lot of time on the applications when really I think if you hone in on the right schools up front, you're going to have good results and good choices down the line. So we want to set you up to have choices amongst your acceptances later, but too many acceptances is also going to be overwhelming. So focus and get 6 to 10 colleges in a range of selectivity, right? So we want some schools that are going to be thrilled to have your application and send you an acceptance right away because you're such a great candidate for their school. We want you to have some schools that are a medium range. So we think there's a good shot you'll be accepted, but it's not a guarantee necessarily. This is a school that is selective for you. And then some that are a bit of a reach. And I've seen students get into those reach schools. One of them hugged the mailman. She was so excited to get her acceptance letter, and he was like, okay, great, I'm so happy for you. But those things happen sometimes, so we want to find those right schools there and then build a list within it. Mentioned before, having honest conversations about your goals and affordability. So mom and dad, I know that we've talked a lot about me pursuing a career in law, and I think that's so exciting, but what I really love to do is fill in the blank. And I'd love to talk more about that and how I could do that, and I've got some ideas, and here's where I could study, and here's some career paths that I already know about. Have those conversations, right? Talk about what is going to be those right fit campuses, but also in terms of the finances. A really important one is to surround yourself with peers and mentors who are going to lift you up and encourage you. There's a lot of competition or jealousy that can occur, and that can be really draining when you're going through a time where you're really trying to stay focused. So find people who are going to lift you up and encourage you in that. And then we joked yesterday, but the students all said, yes, this is happening. I said, people are asking you at the grocery store where you're applying to college. Like, they don't even know your name, but they're getting asked all the time, well, where are you going to college? What's your SAT score? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And students, just remember that you don't have to share until you're ready. You can say, I haven't made a decision yet. I'm really excited to share in the spring when I know where I'm going to go. It can put a lot of pressure on students when they're asked and they want to live up to your expectations, or this stranger is trying to put them in a box and they're just not ready yet. So students, just know that you don't have to share until you're ready. And parents, it's really great when you can support them with that. Just be open to possibilities and remember that God has a purpose and plan for your life. So no matter what other factors we're talking about today, or essay topics or things like that, God is in control. God is directing your path. So for parents, just a few pieces of advice. You're doing a great job. I met your students yesterday. They are wonderful. So any school would be lucky to have them. Keep up the great work. Enjoy this time that you have with them. And I would just say, just continue to listen to your child. Check for understanding. Make sure, when they're saying something, just say, okay, well, I hear that, and is this what you really mean, and how can I help you and support you in that? So you're already doing that. I can tell. They're really already set up for such success. Keep an open mind, like we talked about today, about schools and majors. There's just so many different options out there. There are careers that don't even exist now that will exist later, and so students are, pursuing majors that are new or different than there even were 10 years ago, and just learning about that and finding out about that can really help you have a rewarding dialogue with your student. I think limiting college talk to certain times during the week can be really helpful. Again, we're putting a lot of attention on it. This is their future. We worked so hard. You've worked so hard since you taught them their ABCs and how to tie their shoes, and now we're at this step. I know there's a temptation to want to check and make sure they're on top of things and do all of those things, but it can, again, kind of lead to more stress that needs to happen, right? So if you can set up hey, on Sunday nights after dinner, we're gonna have a 30-minute check-in, see how you're doing, see how I can help, get a status update. Then the student knows, okay, if I come into the kitchen for a snack, I'm not gonna get asked about my essays, or did I do my SAT prep, or things like that, right? And I know we're all laughing, but it can, feel like, oh gosh, people are looking at me all the time about this big thing that I'm already nervous about as a senior, and I'm already trying to work so hard in. So if you can, think about when's a good time for you guys to check in, but not all the time. One family I worked with, they said their kitchen was their no college zone. So if the student was in the kitchen, then they weren't allowed to talk about college topics. And I thought, whatever works for you guys, but just finding those boundaries is good. Test scores aren't the only thing that matters. We talked about that earlier, but just remembering that there's so many different factors there. We always want to do our best. We always want to honor the Lord with giving our best efforts, and also that's not the only thing that schools are going to look at. And I think the last one is just to celebrate every moment, or every win. They're going to get acceptances that you probably anticipate. That's still a moment to celebrate. That's a chance for you to say, oh my gosh, this college wants you there. Look at what you've done, and to be excited about that. And just reminding your child of who and whose they are can really, you being that safe place for them, I know gives them the confidence to really take those risks, to push themselves, and to know that that you have their back all the way through. So keep up the good work, parents. Keep up the good work, students. You're really doing tremendous things. A few books or resources that might be helpful. I mentioned earlier Colleges That Change Lives. That's the 40 schools that have really amazing programs, amazing results, but don't spend a lot in marketing or have billion-dollar football programs that give them that name recognition, but really excellent schools that could be a great fit for you. Last time I brought a copy of The Truth About College Admissions, and it's also a great resource. It takes a very I think measured approach to all these factors. People are trying to sell newspapers and magazines by writing about how hard it is to get in, and here's the one secret that I have that nobody else has. But really just trying to take a deep breath and take a measured approach to it can be good. And then Julie Lithcott-Hames, she was the Dean of Freshmen at Stanford when I was there. I had the pleasure of meeting her a few times. She was a tremendous administrator, is a tremendous person. She wrote a book called How to Raise an Adult. She's written several books, actually, but this one in particular is about her experiences as the Dean of Freshmen. So she saw, 1,600 new freshmen come to Stanford each year, and she started to notice some trends. And the students who were able to really be successful in making that transition from high school to college were the ones whose parents had helped them gain that independence over those 4 years of high school. So those things that I talked about where we're really just trying to help, right? Oh, I'll schedule that tour for you. I'll call your counselor. You just focus on your homework. The parents who said, no, make sure that you call your counselor, and if you need help with that, I'm here to encourage you. But to the students who really had parents who set them up for that independence along the way were the ones who had the confidence, the experience, and the foundation to really move into that adulthood. They're always going to be your child. They're always going to call and want to connect with you. But if they have those skills where they're calling to tell you about something that happened in class instead of ask you, how do I sign up for such and such, right? Those are going to be those really rewarding conversations. So great book, never too young to read that, I think. And so just in closing, I want to share my email address. Students, please feel free to use this. I'm happy to read drafts of your essays. That early deadline for many schools is coming up at the beginning of November or mid-November, depending on the school. So we wanted to come early this year and just give you that time over the next month or so to work on essay drafts, to refine your college lists, make sure that you've got a good range of schools for you in that list. Or maybe you're a younger student and you just want to brainstorm or talk about things. I'm really happy to do that. It's a real blessing and privilege for me to have learned these things over the last couple of decades. Like I said, when I was a senior, I didn't know these things. I was trying to read books and figure it out and ask questions, but if I can be helpful on that journey in any way, that would really mean a lot to me. So I'm excited. I'll be praying for each and every one of you and excited to see what's next. But then I think for now we're going to turn it over to our panelists and answer some of your questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Julia, for that wonderful presentation. As always, it was very informative. and I'm sure a lot of us gained from that presentation. Thank you very much, Julia. I didn't tell you earlier on, and I do apologize. My brother, Julia's husband is my brother Dipo. They've been here several times, so they're pretty much part of us. I didn't give him any special welcome early on, but wave your hands to them. Dipo, he's been very, very, very instrumental in having us know more about Julia's experience and how she can be a blessing to us. Just as an aside, several years ago, one of my brother's children, was going through this process of applying to college, and then he was like, there's no even earlier on, while she was still in high school, she was like, you need to talk to Julia because she knows all about everything you need to know. And they went through some steps and corrected different things, and since then she's been a real resource to all of our little nieces and nephews, cousins, all those who are trying to apply. Some of them have finished college, are getting ready to go to medical school, different things. So that's how I knew that, look, when it came to a point in time when she could be a blessing to us in Christ Rock Chapel, I made sure that she came around, and it was a big blessing that they moved to Austin, which is just a few hours from us here, so it's easy for them to come and check on us. So thank you very much, Deepa. Thank you, Julia, for being a blessing to us. Now, the next is going to be question and answer. And while we're doing that, of course, there will be refreshments. I think those are still getting ready, so please let's just move ahead with the program. And the panel discussants, you've met Julia already, so please come forward so you can take your seat at this. Okay, you're over at the side. And then next is going to be Kani Udo. Please have your seats. Kani Udo was educated high school in part of a high school in Federal Government Girls College. So those of us who grew up in Nigeria, we know about the federal government colleges. Federal Government Girls College, Abuloma, and then she finished her high school education at Classical High School in Providence, Rhode Island. And then she has a bachelor's degree in engineering from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, and an MBA from Harvard University Business School. So we have two Harvard postgraduates here to talk to us. Thank you very much, Akan, for honoring the invitation to talk to us or be a panelist. Next panelist is Francisca Ogania. Please have your seat, Francisca. She graduated from the Woodlands High School over here and graduated from Baylor University with chemical engineering. Electrical, sorry. I said chemical. Electrical, my bad. So they're all here to answer our questions. Why I chose them, of course, Julia is an expert, so she'll be able to answer our questions from the point of view of the expert or the administrator. Kani can answer the question from the point of view of a mother who is a mother also of a college student, because her oldest, David, is a student at the University of Texas, and she has other children who are passing through the system. So she can give us the perspective from a parent, and then who has also passed through the system, who knows the tips and tricks that she used, and then she applied that to. And of importance is the fact that I was reading some research a while back, and the most important factor that actually influences performance of students, the most important single factor, not the only factor, but the most important single factor that influences the performance of students in standardized tests is actually the level of education of the mother, surprisingly. It's not all these other factors you may think there. It's not the college prep, it's not all those things. It's the level of education of the mother, because it's believed that the mother imparts those life lessons gradually as the child grows up. So she will give us a perspective from the mother, and then Francisca will give us the perspective from somebody who is a student who has passed through the system and can give us unique insights to those of us who are currently in school. So thank you very much, our panelists, for this. Now there is a Slido on. Can you please project the Slido? It's also in the church WhatsApp page. I sent it to the church WhatsApp page also, so you can ask your questions if you want to ask them anonymously. But if you want to stand up and ask them also, I'll ask that one of the members of the multimedia be available to pass across microphones to those people who have questions. Thank you. So let's start. I think the very first question on the Slido is already in, I believe. And can you project it? Okay, very good. So it says, what is the advantage of attending a small liberal arts college versus the other colleges, be it state colleges or Ivy League colleges? So we'll ask the members of the panel to respond. So it's a good thing we have a wide, actually I like all three of you to respond, because each of you, we have somebody who is educated from a state type college, who is Julia. We have somebody who went to an Ivy League university, which is Kani, and we have somebody from a private university, Franca. So they can each give us their perspectives. Thank you.
I can start. So I went to Baylor. So that was a private Christian university. And I would say the pros of that is you knew everyone in your department. So in my engineering set, I knew everyone. And so when it came to like study groups and also like getting help, it was really easy for me. I could always go to office hours. I could have a relationship with each of my professors. And it was easy for me to like be in leadership positions and clubs because there wasn't that much people. I would say a con is if you don't like small schools, you might feel, I guess if you just like small schools, you just don't like it. I don't know how to say it anywhere else. The other thing I would just say about private universities is there is a lot of money being pumped into student life. So like, for example, I was just talking to my friend on Saturday. They had a football game and they had like a charcuterie board. And I was like, why wasn't that there when I was there? So they do like lots of things to kind of make students feel at home. And you have access to your teachers and you have a close relationship with people in your department, your major. So that's what I would say.
So I think for the Ivy League schools, like you do have a lot of those. It's a small, most of them are small enough that you have a lot of those. But I think one of the things is just the name recognition when you graduate, that you maybe get a little bit of a benefit of the doubt, a little more than from other schools. I think being at the school, the resourcing can be a difference too. Like there's a lot of them have a lot of money, and so the level of resourcing, the level of research, a lot of professors will tend to go there for the high level of research. So it's the reputation, it's the research. But I think I can't. Julia was preaching it, and I was nodding hard. It really depends on the student, because you can. I mean, I went to MIT, and actually MIT is not an Ivy League school. It is grouped with the Ivy Leagues, but it's not one of the Ivy Leagues. But if you go to those level of schools, there were people that started that did not finish. So the level of support, the level of expectation is very high. And so I'm not saying, go off somewhere and slack, but, know yourself and like really find that fit for you. That's what I would say.
That's great. Well, speaking for the state colleges, one thing, as I mentioned before, a big factor for my family was affordability, and Cal Poly was affordable, and it was an excellent education. It was one that my family had, both my parents had been fortunate enough to go there too. There's something about the spirit on campus and the student life, particularly for our Texas schools. We have such great spirit on campuses, so there's a real energy around campus. But I think affordability is a big one, and I think these are flagship universities for a reason. People come from out of state and pay a lot of extra money to come to Texas schools because the level of professors is so high, the research opportunities, but just the range is so broad. I think another reason for a state school can be if you plan to pursue a career in your state. For Cal Poly, architecture is one of the programs that's highly regarded there. And one in four architects in the state of California got a degree from Cal Poly. So within particular fields, you can also take advantage of those alumni networks and really build that career. I would just say too, thinking about the type of academic experience, right? So some state schools have larger lecture hall environments, and so just knowing yourself and knowing if you can stay engaged and really pursue that is important. At Cal Poly, I was fortunate; it was a more teaching-focused university, and my program in particular was. So I did have smaller classes that were a good fit for me. But again, I think each of these types of schools offer really different experiences, but there can be really great benefits to any of them. It's a great question.
I did, want to touch on the financial, because the Ivy Leagues tend to be on the more expensive side, but that should not be a deterrent because they tend to be need blind, and so they will they're need-based financial aid. So they're need blind admission and need-based financial aid. So they will, they do make it affordable for folks to go to school there. So if that is your dream, I don't let the financial only be a deterrent.
And also for private universities, I don't know about, mine is Christian, so even though I also got a scholarship. So you can also get scholarships even if you're not FAFSA eligible. So that's another thing they have. And they have I know in my department, every semester they have new scholarships for engineering students or pre-med, but yeah.
While she's fixing that, so FAFSA, hopefully everyone knows what that is already, is the free application for student aid, a federal application for student aid, sorry. And everyone has to apply for that once your student is a senior. So if you don't know about it yet because you're not there, but if you're a senior, I hope you know it should be opening up shortly. You should apply for it, but everyone will need to apply for that. It will require your tax returns and financials, but that's how your student's need is determined for student financial aid.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next question is, I have a 9th grader focused on basketball, not sure of what course to pursue. Is it to focus on his studies or the sport at the present moment? Okay, I'm not a panelist, but I'll tell you something because I've had one child who played basketball, and before they talk, I'll let them talk because they'll talk, but I'll just tell you my unique experience to add to what you are saying, what they're going to say. And that is, if you have a child who plays any sport, then it's not a binary decision. So it's not an either or decision. We heard what Julia told us already. What you don't tell them to focus on basketball or their sport. You tell them to focus on both of them because they need to study hard and they need to play their sport hard because both of those things have different doors they open for you. They open admission doors because people who are elite athletes, that's elite ones, have a different academic admission standard to the same school from those people who are not elite athletes. But even if your child is not an elite athlete, then, like Julia said, the admission officers are looking at the things that the child did. So, based off of even their approach to their sport and what they did, say they were a captain of the football team, automatically they know that for you to be the captain of the football team, some of those football teams, they get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to lift weights and do their workouts. If you now were a captain on the football team, it means that the football coaches trusted you to be an example to all the people coming up, that you get up on time, be organized with your stuff. Now, if you now score a relatively high score on the SAT, or you have a very good GPA, you are the captain of the football team, what's going through the admission officer's mind is, this boy could get up in the morning, could slog through the hot heat of Texas, if you grew up in Texas, and then still be able to get back home and work at his grades and grind enough to be able to get a good grade. They're going to bring that child up on their list if it's a school that's looking for that type of child. So my own answer to that question is, don't tell them to focus on either or. Tell them to focus on both of them and give them resources to be able to focus on both of them. So if they need a little help with their nutrition, a little help with their transportation, you as a parent make the sacrifices to be able to help them do that. But I'll hand it over to the panel.
Yes, I would just echo everything that Pastor Mo said, and I would say if you excel in basketball, either as a leader or as an athlete, that can be a tipping factor at a school. But if you excel in your academics, that's going to be a tipping factor at every university. So I would say academics do come first. But if you love a sport and that really brings you joy, do that, pursue that, make that your activity that you really enjoy to complement your studies. But we are students first. We're scholar athletes, so we want to really focus on the academics. Sports will only get you into college, but you need to finish college. That's the goal. It's not just getting in, right? And so I think sports can be a really great way to build community, to be a leader, to push ourselves in a different arena, use our minds and bodies in a different way. But we really do want to hold that academics at least as equal a factor. There was another question about resources you can use to educate your parents to know more about American colleges. Many folks in the room maybe didn't attend university here in the United States, so how do we learn about those schools and how do we find those out? I think one resource I really used both as a student applying to college and then also as a school counselor helping students is they're these really big books, but they're just basically a short profile of every different university. I would get them from the library when I was a student, so I wasn't even buying these books, but I would go and pull those. And maybe you want to look at schools just in a particular region, you can do that, or you can find, there's an index, you can look schools that specialize in civil engineering. Also, the internet is a great resource if you just want to say top colleges for certain majors, and then just start clicking around, start exploring, start learning. Ask people around you. That book, Colleges That Changed Lives, I think is one just great resource that kind of trims it down to 40 schools. But there's I think I love that you have a spirit of curiosity, and I think that can help you pursue. Franca, what did you use?
Yeah, so I wanted to say two things. For this question, definitely make sure whatever university you see is accredited. So every university has accreditation auditing that goes on, and there's a few that are recognized by the government. So that means that those universities, the government recognizes that what they're teaching you is it's, I don't know how to explain it, but it's valid, right? And so that's what jobs look at, right? So you don't want to, when you look for smaller named universities, you want to make sure that it's accredited by a recognized auditor. That's the one thing I would say. And then you want to think about the region you want to be in. So that's my answer for that one. But for the second question about the basketball, I just wanted to say that think of anything you do in high school as a door opener and a door closer. So your GPA can open more doors for you as for safe schools, and then it can also close more doors that makes those schools reach schools. So the same way basketball could open up more doors for you, but it can also close some doors for you. Because if you're focusing so much on your basketball and your GPA is so low, well, every department has the GPA requirement. So engineering degree GPA requirement is not the same as English or social works or business, if that makes any sense. So I would always, like what I tell any of the kids that I talk to is that just think of it as a holistic thing, right? You're good at sports, great. Think of it as something to add into your resume. But your GPA as a high school is your GPA. You need it, right? Don't be in youthful exuberance and say, I'll do this later, I'll do this later, I'll do this later, and then you regret that, oh, I could have had an A in English, but I didn't want to turn in that essay on time. And then you got 15 points off. Well, you can do that now, but when you're in university, if you don't turn in that essay on time, it's a 0, not 15 points off, right? So you have to start building that responsibility and organization skills. The friends that I had in university who were very organized and very, very structured, they're in medical school now. The ones who were very lackadaisical, they're stuck with a degree that they can't really use. That's just honesty.
So I think when I had just moved to the U.S. my sophomore year in high school, and so I did have to go. I was sitting where a lot of you are sitting, where my parents sort of had a few schools in mind, and every other school was not a school. So, I appreciate where that question is coming from. I think it's a lot of just open-mindedness. Share with your parents. Know that they ultimately they love you and want your best, the best outcome for you. And then parents, be open-minded as well, and pay attention to what your children are saying, sort of what their passions are. And I know sometimes, for immigrant parents, it can be like, okay, I'm glad you have that passion, but school is different. But there's a way to bring some of those together, especially with the new economy that the world is changing. So let's pay attention. But, it really is an accommodation from both sides. So the kids, be patient with your parents. The parents, be patient with the kids.
How do you source? One more thing I wanted to let us know is that the schools, one thing you can do to keep track of what's going on to a parent of a child who has gotten an athletic scholarship, but it's not just athletics, it's other extracurricular activities, be it band, be it some of the other UIL activities, is that there is the no pass, no play. Now, you don't want to get to that level, but starting from junior high, for you to participate in any UIL sport, there's a minimum passing requirement. So you can also use that as an incentive to encourage the child that if they don't do well, they're not going to play their sport. So that's also something that's an added thing when it comes to the sports and the extracurriculars that are UIL approved. Now, that's in Texas, which is the Universal Interscholastic League that governs the sports. Now, sports and extracurriculars. Now, the next question is, how do we source funding when we don't qualify for financial aid assistance? Can anybody talk to us about sourcing funding when you don't qualify for financial aid?
I can start, and then you spoke to having that. So there really are two main funding sources. So one is need-based, that's based on the family's financial circumstances, and using the FAFSA is how you would start that process. So that's one source, and then the other is scholarships. Those tend to be merit-based scholarships, and they're based on a student's accomplishments. They could be for athletics, they could be for academics, they could be for special skills and talents that a student brings. The University of Oklahoma, if you are a national merit finalist, there's a merit scholarship for you, so you can take advantage of that merit scholarship. It doesn't matter what your family's income is, you can have that scholarship money that you don't need to pay back. It's like a grant, so it's not a loan that you can take advantage of. University of Georgia has these, so you can search for schools, colleges that offer merit scholarships and take advantage of those. And then you said that you benefited from some of those. Yeah.
Yeah. So the three things I can think about is if finances are things that are a huge factor to your decisions, maybe staying in state and looking at public schools. A lot of them are a fraction of the cost of out-of-state schools and private schools, and then encourage your kids to have high GPAs. the higher your GPA, the higher your academic scholarship. So I had a friend in Baylor who was valedictorian of her school. So she picked Baylor out of Rice because Baylor gave her like basically almost a full scholarship, and Rice gave her the fraction of the cost. So it's an incentive to like work hard. That's why I say a GPA is a door opener. The higher your GPA, the higher academic scholarships you can get, which can also help your parents. And then another thing is if you have kids that are pretty young and you're thinking like, oh, 16 years, 18 years down the line, there are college funds that you can put your money towards that are tax-free. I'm actually doing that. I took a break because I don't have a child yet. But I put like $100 every month, right, in anticipation for my future children. So you can start doing that now. So, because the way these rates are going, I was like, I need to start saving some money. So I think it's a mixture of, thinking of in-state schools, right, getting a high GPA, and then if you can save money into the fund, and it's not taxed. And you can use it for anything that has to do with academics, even textbooks and laptops and stuff. So.
That's amazing.
I took a break.
Do that. Another thing that I did in high school was I became best friends with the secretary for the principal who was in charge of all the local scholarships. And every Monday I would go see Miss Raina and I'd say, are there any new scholarships that came in? And it was good advice that my parents gave me. They said, you could work at the Gap and you could make minimum wage and that would be great. Or if you really put your efforts toward thinking about applying to scholarships as your job, think about the return on investment that you could make. You might be making a lot more than minimum wage if you really give this your attention. So I applied for the Rotary Scholarship and the Sunshine Rotary Scholarship and the $100 Future Teacher Award and all these little awards, right? I mean, it wasn't that I also applied for the Coca-Cola Scholarship of $20,000. I didn't get it, but I was putting a lot of time into that, and those local ones can really add up. So, you're going to see big money Toyota Scholarship Awards. Those are wonderful and go to very deserving students, but there's also little money that can add up too. So think about those sources as well. And those you can take to any school. So things like the Baylor Scholarship is awesome because when you're going there and you can take advantage of it there, but those little ones you can take to any school.
Okay, now, is it okay not to know what course to pursue in the ninth grade? Is it okay? So we'll have each of them give their unique perspective on that question. So
I will answer that first. I think that's perfectly fine. I did not know what I wanted to do until I want to say sophomore, junior year. So my advice to ninth grade me, I guess what I would tell myself is, first of all, focus on my GPA. Because again, it's a door opener, right? I want to have as broad as an option as to what major I want to be in. So I chose engineering because I knew I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I knew that an engineer can work in so many different industries. But if I wasn't math and science inclined, then I would go to something more business or like MIS or something that is not, this is what I would tell anyone, right? When you're looking for a career, think of two things: the saturation and the job outlook growth. So if I want to be a dentist or a lawyer or whatever, I look and I see, okay, how many are currently doctors or lawyers and all this stuff, and how is this going to grow? And so another thing I also do for myself, or what I would tell myself, is what do you like to do? What are you naturally good at? I always tell like my friends this too, like I have to stop telling people about my job because God gave me a grace that He gave me a job that even if I'm sick, I do well at it. So I could say it's easy, but it's not really easy, if that makes any sense, because it's tied to my strengths. So my strengths is problem solving, utterance, like being able to talk, express myself, being able to convince a client to do X, Y, and Z. Those are my strengths. Now, I'm not that good at medicine, right? If I see a cut, I'm squeamish. Like, my mom was like, you want to be a doctor? If you have a blister, you're shouting up and down. So like, I always say, know your children and then help them, right? So my parents were like, okay, the way you think like an engineer, right? So you know your child, you know their strengths, you know their weaknesses, and you don't need to know what you're doing, but please pick a major that you can sustain yourself with. I always tell the kids, I was like, oh, Auntie Franca, oh, I like what you do. I'm like, yeah, read books. You like what I'm wearing? Read your book, So it's... If you want a certain lifestyle, you have to read your book. I'm sorry. That's the truth.
And that's a mic drop. No, no, I agree with everything she said. But I'll come from the encouraging side and say that there are colleges that you can apply to and not declare a major yet. Now, there are certain schools that you have to apply to a specific major. So the Texas schools, UT, Austin, A&M, you do have to apply to a certain major. But there are schools that you don't have to apply to a specific major. So there's a lot of time to explore. Definitely at 9th grade, you should still be exploring. But I think I want to echo what Frank has said, which is like make sure that your funnel at this point is still wide open, right? So you should sort of narrow as you get or as you go through college. But at this point, you want the widest sort of opening. So you want, the STEM opening is one, or a liberal arts opening, but like really keep yourself still broad. And then know yourself, pay attention, talk with your parents' kids, and parents be open to what the kids have to say.
This is all great advice. I think I would just build on that by saying, as you meet adults whom you admire or who are doing interesting things, ask them like, well, what is your job? And not just what is your job, but what does a day in the life really look like for you? So, as an educator, like sometimes it's, reviewing essays and doing this, but sometimes it's I'm out at carpool, or sometimes I'm, running around trying to track down students in their free period and making it look like it's a coincidental meeting. There's all sorts of things that are happening, but, it's also what were the strengths that you have that you think help you succeed in that job? What don't you like about your job? And I think that can be really interesting too, to just start to ask people questions and treat it like a little research project. And and also I think the point that you shared earlier about there's jobs that we don't even know about yet, but building a spirit of excellence, doing our best work, whatever it is, will just open more doors so that when you do find that thing that you're really interested in, you're poised, you're ready, and you're prepared, right? So opportunity meeting preparation is going to lead to those blessings.
Next question, is it better to go to a community college and transfer after 2 years, or to a 4-year university, or just, after 2 years to a 4-year university, or just go to a 4-year university straight? So can you answer that question, panel?
What I would say is 2 years to the 4-year university is ideal if you know that the finances aren't there, right? I know of people in the Woodlands High School, right? They didn't get into UT Austin or A&M, so they all went to their feeder community colleges that are tied to UT specifically, and A&M specifically, and even Baylor, there's one that's tied to Baylor. Most schools have one, not like the Ivies, but like, like the other ones. And so they went there for 2 years, and they transferred to a 4-year university. But just a caveat, I did notice that for certain degrees, it's harder, right? So like for engineering, it's a bit harder. For computer science, it's harder. But if you know you're not gonna be, if you know that you are diligent, right? You can still do it. There were people in Baylor that transferred from McLennan, that's like the community college, and they're in engineering, and they were able to complete the 4 years. So just understand that like if you are in a harder STEM major, it might be a harder transition. And there's also the factor that you won't really know the people in your department for like the first year, because everyone has known each other for 2 years before you came in. But everything has an opportunity cost, right? So I don't know somebody for 2 years, or I saved $50,000. Everything has an opportunity cost.
I would say there's great reasons to go to a 2-year campus if you want to give yourself a little more time to explore and figure things out with not the tuition price of a 4-year university. The questions to ask if you're going to do that, just making sure that every class is lining up to meet the requirement at the 4-year university. So have a plan, ask questions, be best friends with your counselor, and make sure that the classes you're taking in those 2-year universities are going to going to count as credit for your four-year university, because you might take 3 classes that don't count, and now you have to redo courses once you get to the four-year school. So that's one thing. And I think too, just one thing to think about is it's an additional level of friction that you're going to encounter in your college search. So it can be a really great choice for students, and I'm really grateful that we have these great community colleges. But it is something that now, you know, instead of I'm applying to a four-year school and I'm going to pursue all the way through for 4 years, I'm going to do 2 years here, and then I need to now apply to other schools, move campuses, build new relationships, all of those things. And that can definitely work, but it is just an additional work that students are doing. So just ask those questions, do that cost-benefit analysis, but it can be a really great option for students.
Next question is it a great idea to get loans to go to college away from home or stay local and save money? So that's a financial question, but I'd like the panel to address that too. Thank you.
I can start. I mean, I think with everything, you do have to do the analysis for yourself. You do have to do what's the return on that investment, right? I think if the option is to go away from home, to go to a college, which actually no, I step back. I think that you can get a great education close to home. So I think if it's that you have to take a loan and you look at the other circumstances around it, it's not a good fit for you. I don't think you push to go to a name brand school and take the loans and not be a fit for you over a local school. Now, if you get into a great school and you know, like the course you want, and you think that the return on investment, so when you come out, what you're able to earn, which there's lots of data available, you can do that analysis. If you want to do, you know, I am a spreadsheet lover, I will help you put it into a spreadsheet. We can look at it together, discount it over your career life. Then we can do that analysis too. But I think you really, you know, I would say pray about it before you take the loans to go to school far away. Especially if you can get into those schools far away, you can get in close to home. So.
This is great. Spreadsheets are my love language, so that made me really happy. But I would just say too, you know, think about your career and your education as a marathon, not a sprint. So for me, I just wasn't ready to go far away from home, and a lot of factors. I got a great education 2.5 hours away, but then I had an opportunity for graduate school to go to the East Coast and to go to Harvard and to have that experience. So I did, you know, there's a long game here too, right? So get the best opportunity, the right fit for you for that undergraduate level, but do really be mindful about the finances, because to be really far into debt and starting your career is going to be a different experience than to have more freedom to choose the career that you want to pursue without being encumbered by those loans. So I think with everything, you're weighing a lot of factors, but these 4 years in college are not the only 4 years you're going to have in your adult life. You're going to have many, many more opportunities and lots of different ways to have those experiences. So
I just want to say, this is not a one-size-fits-all, but what I would say about this is, okay, if this university is, let's say, Ivy League, okay, and let's say you got into a major that is tied to a salary that would pay back that loan in, let's say, 4 years, that's just something. But I always say, like what she said, like do a risk control matrix, right, or risk analysis, which is like, okay, if I'm in this university in Texas, this is how much it's gonna cost. And you have to ask yourself, do you want to live in Texas or that state? Because the recruiters are going to be there, are going to be mostly for that state, right? And the other thing I want to think about is you can always go to Ivy League for your master's, right? So it's definitely a personal decision, but please look at the loan, look at how much is going to increase in that 4 years, because it increases in that 4 years. It doesn't like stay stagnant, right? And then think about the jobs you want, the outlook, the growth, the base. Whenever they see like average salary, always estimate 20,000 down, I'm a risk-averse person, so I always do that. So just assume you're making minimum, 10,000 below minimum. Just assume that. And then think about rent, think about car notes, think about maybe you have other, responsibilities. Make a spreadsheet, like they said, and ask yourself, is this something that will not be overwhelming for you? And some people, they've done it, it's been great, and some people, not so much. So it's definitely a personal decision.
Okay, next question. Oh,
Can I just temper that? So I did, for full disclosure, I'm the first of many children. So I did take out loans, and I have paid them off. So it is possible, and I do think that my degree did help me pay it off. So, it's not a no. It's a do your analysis. I knew that for me, state school or Ivy was going to be loans just where my parents were at the time. So do your analysis.
Thank you very much for the great balance in the answers. So now, how can you tell? My assumption is the question is, I'll read it out, but I think it's saying, how can you tell to pursue an athletic scholarship or an academic scholarship? So I believe the question is decision-making matrix between athletics and academics in terms of scholarships. So can the panel answer, and then I'll put in a few 2 cents into that also when they're done. So.
Okay, so I can only talk about the academic scholarship. So when I applied to Baylor, part of my acceptance letter was a scholarship for the whole 4 years. So they considered my essay, my GPA, and they offered it to me directly. So I didn't apply for it, but I did apply for other engineering-based scholarships while I was in Baylor. So what I would tell everyone, again, your GPA is your door opener, right? I know it sounds like I'm saying the same thing, but it really is. Even for medical school or law school, it's your door opener. So I would focus on how high of a GPA can I get? Do I have to study more in English, in calculus, in physics? What do I need to study more in, right? And don't go and, this is one thing I'm telling anyone, if you know you're not good in physics, don't go and take AP physics. You're not gonna magically, don't do that. So that's what I would say. I don't know anything about the sports. And also, I know that for a fact, like I had friends who are more inclined. You can dedicate an hour every day to look for a Texas scholarship, and you can apply. It's just how much you want. It's like the best I can explain about it is you're investing in your youth, right? So you're investing to your future. So I'm going to dedicate an hour today on college scholarships because I really want to have as low of a tuition as possible. That could be something that you're investing in, and you can get the return while you're in college.
Pastor Mo, I think you'd be great to talk about the athletic side of things just because you've gone through it recently.
Okay, my own thing is, how do you decide if you're going to pursue an athletic scholarship? First things first, I want to tell you that the panelists answered it properly. The first thing you can control is your academics. So when I say pursue both, it's a gimme that excellence in academics is always going to be there. So you try to be the best person you can be academically. In terms of whether or not you're going to get an athletic scholarship, it depends on the sport you are doing. But the first thing is, at a younger age, depends on where you are in the process. If you're an 8th grader or a 9th grader, for example, like relatively early in the process relative to your sport, you will start to know if you are athletic scholarship caliber, because for you to be athletic scholarship caliber, you have to be one of the better people in your team, whatever team you are playing in. So at the stage of 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, you will know because you're going to be one of the better people on your team. If you are not, then remember it's a funnel, it's a pyramid. So they are knocking people off at each level. If you're not one of the better people on your school team, then it's unlikely you're going to qualify for an athletic scholarship. You may have a stratospheric improvement at some point, but in general, you have to be one of the better people. And secondly, if you are now one of the better people, then it's time to figure out how to invest in coaching. Because unless you are the 1% or half percentile talent where you're so good that everybody looks at you, every coach looks at you and they say, whoa, you are going to be a professional or you're going to go to college, then you're going to need some kind of coaching. So try to figure out the best possible additional coaching you can get to take you to that top percentile level. So by the time you're getting to become a a sophomore, people will be telling you that I think you can play in college. Coaches will be telling you, and people will start guiding you as to what you need to do. It varies from sport to sport. Things like track, it's all metrics. So if you're already running, if you're, say, like a ninth grader, and the times you're running in your events or the distance you are jumping in your event is close to what the college people are jumping, all you need to do is, you get some elite coaching so that you make that little difference between the gap you need. You understand? For example, my daughter, who got an athletic scholarship, by the time she was she was a little interrupted with COVID, but by the time she was in 8th grade, she was already running times that will get her into high school teams. So you automatically know that you just need to get coaching, and I got her a coach, or even a coach. I got her a coach to help her a little. A coach found her and said, we want you to be on our private team, so that's how you start to know. Now for sports, and I'll get somebody else to comment whose child has a scholarship in volleyball. They can kind of comment to you, but the coaches are going to start to notice you, and then at that stage, you know that you just have to do a little more to build up on it to get there. But always work on your academics, because it will always get you a better opportunity, even with regards to the athletics. Because there's a trick I'll tell you. The academically selective schools, there's on average, I'm just talking on average, they have a smaller pool of candidates to choose from. So if the school is very academically selective, if you are very good academically and you're good at your sports, because there's a smaller pool of students that the very highly academically selective schools will choose from, then you give yourself an advantage. There are some other schools that, for the reason of their being the nature of the schools, like the military academies, for example, not everybody wants to go there, but they're looking for students to play sports there. So for them, because not everybody wants to go to the military who plays a sport, because of the commitment you might do afterwards, then there's a smaller pool they're looking for. So those people are also looking for people. So you have, the better you do in school, the smaller the pool of candidates they are looking at who can do well in school and play the sport. So it gives you an advantage over some other kids. So those are the things that I'll tell you should contribute towards. But I know there's another family who has a daughter who's going to go play volleyball in school. So Joshua and Shola, can you tell us, give them the microphone, let them give you their take on how you decide also.
Praise the Lord. To decide to pursue academic or athletic scholarship, I would think the priority would be the academic if you want to pursue. And then talking about the athletic, if you develop yourself, that will actually pursue you. So if you want to put all your effort on either of the two, I would think the primary one would be the academic scholarship, because if you are not able to, for any reason, meet up with athletics, then you still have something to fall back on. But if you make the athletic the priority and you don't meet up with the standard, then it could affect. Praise the Lord.
Thank you. So now, I don't quite completely understand that question, but I'll read it out and then let the panel decipher it. It says, do top schools, Ivy League kind, set one student apart from another post-graduation? So I'm not sure whether it's post-high school graduation or post-college graduation, but I think you can try to decipher the question.
Okay. I'll try to answer that because I now recruit for, I'm on the recruiting team for ExxonMobil, that when we go, whether it's when it's in Ivy League school, we still look at the GPA. We still look at your course of study. We still look at the activities you were involved in. The schools themselves don't set you apart. But then, it's the same sort of, every school has the same measures, right? You have the GPA, you have how you perform, and so every, I'll say every circle you're trying to join when you graduate from high school, you're trying to get into the best college, right? They're looking at your GPA, they're looking at how the activities you were involved in. When you try to go to grad school after your undergraduate, they're looking at your GPA, they're looking at how the activities you were involved in, how you performed. So your GPA always would, make that room for you. So yes, you will still have a GPA. There are, oh God, what is Tau Beta Pi? But these are academic, like based on your performance, honors societies that will invite you to join based on your GPA, that will then open doors for you as you apply to grad school, as you apply to the workforce. But again, it's about your GPA. So I hope that addressed the question. I don't know. Was that? Somebody wants to?
I think too, just every university is going to have an alumni network that you can take advantage of. There's an Ivy Plus network that has gatherings in cities all around the country. There was a Cal Poly one in Austin just a week ago, and these are ways that you can connect with people, whatever city you're in, post-graduation. So those are great networks to take advantage of. But where you go to school is one distinguishing factor, but it's what you do while you're there that really is, I think, to your point, the most distinguishing factor.
Okay. Now, can you comment from a recruiting standpoint, since you're there, just to develop that question, is that what are the things that or let's put it, is there any advantage to attending an Ivy League school? Because I think that's what one of the spirits of the question, versus another school, and what factors play a role in the Ivy League school being an advantage, because it will help people make a decision. Okay, do I sacrifice a little bit more to go to an Ivy League school versus stay local?
That's right. So, yes, when we go to recruit, we have tier 1 schools. They're not only Ivy Leagues, but they're the top tier schools, and all the Ivy Leagues are in there. And the view or the lens we look at those students is slightly different. So we have a 3.5 out of 4.0 GPA cutoff for consideration at all. If you are in the Ivy League schools, then you have a 3.4 or a 3.3, then we probe further to see if it was that you were a student athlete, or we give a little more grace. And then also there is, for complete transparency, there is a starting salary difference for the top tier schools versus the second tier schools. I'm sorry? It's about 10%, so it's not a significant, but there is a difference.
Okay. Thank you. I hear some murmurings in the crowd, but okay. One of the parents who has graduated 3 children from college, Sister Benny, wants to comment real briefly. Or Deacon Benny, sorry.
Praise the Lord. What I have to say about that is this. The affordability on the side of the parent is utmostly the first thing you should consider. I remember when my oldest daughter was going to college, and she had gotten admission to 12 Ivy League schools because she had gone to a private high school, which we didn't pay a dime for. I remember that a lot of the parents, Nigerian parents, the few Nigerian parents in that private school, they castigated my husband and I because we did not let her go to an Ivy League for the first degree, because we knew we couldn't afford it. We had 2 other kids in the home. My husband was in school. I was doing my doctorate in physical therapy at that time. I couldn't afford it. So we chose for her to go to one of the two schools that gave her a full tuition. At the time, we had no idea how this was going to work out, but I remember that my daughter came home, and she was their star student, and she was crying. She couldn't understand why she couldn't go to Yale, Harvard, Stanford, and all these beautiful names. And we said, Deborah, you have to go to Washington University in St. Louis. And after the first year in college, she came back because all the other students that were below her in that military academy from where they graduated high school, they had gone to all those schools that she wanted to go. She had the admission, but we couldn't afford. And after 1 year, she came back. She came home, and I was sitting there at the dining table, and she knelt down, and she was thanking us that we did not make that mistake. Because two of the other kids who had gone to Harvard, they had given them to pay $17,000 for the first year. And the second year, they yanked out everything, and they had to pay almost $60,000. And I remember one of them never went back to college. He told himself, because his parents were Mexicans, they had spent all the money to bring him to this Ivy League high school, not thinking about college. And so he went back. He said he was going to go try his luck with a startup business in California. Now, what became of that guy, nobody has an idea. But where am I going with this? She finished the 4-year college, but before she finished, recruiters came like Sister Kani and gave her a full-time job before she even finished her junior year in college. And the college that she wanted to go, Harvard, for her first degree, she ended up going with the job she got. They paid her tuition for grad school, debt-free. So why are we going to get ourselves in debt because of the 10% difference? It makes no sense. Because your loans are going to keep getting higher. All my daughter's friends that they went to the same school and they racked up a lot of debt, they look at that, they go, Deborah, you're lucky. Because, when they want to go places, she doesn't have a student loan. And they don't understand how. If you trust God and you pray and you walk like you have never read, and you pray and pray and pray like you don't even know how to study, and you study hard like you don't have a God, you succeed. God is faithful, and He will not owe you any good thing. God is faithful. He will not owe you any good thing. I stand there and I can thank God that none of my children have a student loan, not a dime. And they all went to college, and they're all gainfully employed.
Okay, thank you. So that's another unique perspective to that. So it helps us with our decision-making matrix. Take note, we have two ends of the spectrum. In summary, we have somebody who took loans, paid them off quickly. We have somebody who didn't need to take any loans, and they're both very gainfully employed. There's some people, parents paid for them. For me, too, as an advantage, honestly, the lower you pay, the better for you. We also made that decision because even in the sports, there was a school that's an Ivy League school, but that does not give any financial, only gives need-based aid, but is highly rated, one of the top 10 in the country, maybe even top 5 in the country. Wanted my daughter versus the one that will give athletic aid, and we had some decision making to make sure. Ultimately went to the one that gives athletic aid, which is closer to home. So it varies from person to person, and so far she's having a good experience. So it all depends. You have to make your decisions and try to have some numbers to back up your decision as you're making it. But as much as possible, it helps. The Bible says the borrower is servant to the lender. So as much as possible, reduce how much you borrow. So that's my own take on that. But also more questions. Are the majors picked when applying binding? How do you decide which major to pick? How do schools perceive different applications based on major choices?
So I think the schools are all different. When, at MIT, I didn't have to declare a major till my sophomore year, so my second year in college. There are schools like, Brown University and others where you don't even have to declare a major till your graduating semester. that's not, I don't think that's a great idea, but there are those options. But there are schools like UT Austin where you apply to a specific college and a specific major, and those are close to binding and very hard to switch out of. So pick wisely.
Cal Poly was like that. I had to pick my major applying in. You could sometimes switch within your college. So let's say you applied for English, but you decided history. You were still in the College of Liberal Arts. That was a little bit easier, but to switch between colleges. And like UT, the admissions requirements can be slightly different. It might be more selective in certain programs than others. So just being mindful of that. It's not the same. Applying to UT isn't the same across the board. The different majors can be more selective.
I would just say that whenever you're looking at a school that you have to pick a major, look at the degree plan, look at the courses, and think about how you did in those courses in high school. Because if you chose engineering, for example, they're going to compare you to people who also want to be an engineer and how your GPA, what you did in your AP, like math, your calc, all this kind of stuff. And then when you are in your school and you're doing the major, if you're not decided, at least pick a major that is economical and you're good at. That's my advice, but it's not one size fits all.
The next question is about technical school and not knowing about the process. So a technical school is going to prepare you for a particular job. Usually it's a shorter program. It's very focused on getting certifications or things like that. It can be an option, especially if you want to work in a field where maybe you're more hands-on, or you want to pursue a career like that. It's not going to prepare you as broadly to be able to switch careers down the line. So you just want to think about that and the career paths that are available. But it'll be very focused. It'll be a shorter program and allow you to move forward a little bit quicker. But you're not going to get that broad liberal arts or general education.
Thank you very much for that. And then I think we've answered that question. How do you find which college would be the best option for your career choice? For example, pilot, for example. Somebody wants to become a pilot. What do they do? So, panel.
What I would say is, because I was talking to some of the kids during university, and I was telling them, if there's a career that you like, go on LinkedIn, right? Look at people that have that career and look at their trajectory to get there, the schools they went to. That can give you an idea of, okay, these schools have this. And then if you really want to know, what is the best school for this? Okay, for example, you have Delta, you have United, you have all these airlines, right? Okay, what are the trends of, schools that are tied to these things? Are they programs that are tied to these airlines? Is there an airline that you specifically like? Look at the benefits of each airline, that kind of thing. That's what I would do.
Okay, and when it comes to pilot school, all I'll say is that because I happened to interact with a pilot at somewhere where I went to, some of these airlines, you don't even need to finish college. They have programs, and some of them are actually looking for minority, people of minority backgrounds to fill their organization. So they have programs that specifically train pilots. So if you want to be a pilot, you can actually get trained by the airline directly. You just have to find out, Franca has alluded to, do some research on the individual airlines and find out, okay, what are the career paths of people who are pilots. Another thing for piloting is the military. Is another option, but with the military, it's kind of a little more complicated because you also have to do your research and find out that, okay, the people who are military pilots, how do they get to that military pilot stage, and make sure you kind of have mapped out your pathway and have an off-ramp if they're not getting you where you're trying to get to. Because with the military, it's a commitment. So if you go to their college, then you have a certain amount of years you can pay back. If you sign up, there's a certain minimum amount of time you have to spend there. But hopefully we'll have another session where we'll be able to discuss, we'll get somebody from the military to discuss the military, but that's also another option. And I have talked to people who use the military as a stepping stone to become pilots or to get some certain careers done, because it's not just pilots. For example, there are some careers that are lucrative that you can get trained in the military, like people from our church, aircraft mechanic, for example. It's a technical qualification, but it is very lucrative, and there are a lot of jobs out there for people. And they went into the military specifically from junior college to get trained as an aircraft mechanic, and they got that program, and they're currently getting training. The pay is not going to be as high when you're in the military, but once you're done with your commitment, it opens doors for private sector jobs, and it works in a bunch of vocations, so it's not just those particular things. So you have to look at the people who went into that program, like the panelists have said, and see what the career path is for them. Thank you.
Specifically for pilots, Auburn University is a really great option. I don't know who asked that question, but if you want to talk, because I have a friend whose son just went there. So if you want to talk to me, but when you're looking at a school, look at like how much flight time the school will afford you while you're in school, specifically for pilots.
Okay, thank you very much. And Auburn is probably going to be a little more cost effective than a true aeronautical university like Embry-Riddle and those that are focused only on aeronautics, which are a lot more expensive. But that's if you want to go the college route. Now, what are the differences between scholarships and grants? Is there any implication if your college department wants to offer you a grant? So can the panel address that, please?
Sure. So, like I said earlier, there's two different routes for funding. There's the merit-based scholarships and there's the need-based financial aid. Within need-based aid, there's different types of aid that can be granted, but it's based on a family's financial circumstances. So one is a grant. It's basically the same as a scholarship in principle. It's money that they give you that you don't have to pay back. So if you see grant, just look at the fine print, but that means that's money that you do not have to pay back. Then there's loans. So they might make up the cost, if it's $50,000, they might give you a grant of $10,000, a loan of $20,000, work study of $2,000. So that work study money is money that's available for you at the college, but you have to get a job on campus to earn that money. But they have reserved $2,000 in funds to help you offset the cost of that tuition. So there's lots of different types of aid. It's a good question to sit down with one of us or someone at your school who can really parse those details out. But when you get your acceptances, you're also going to get your financial aid and scholarship packages. So you want to just put all of those together. They're going to, what is the free money, right? The scholarships and grants. What's the work study money? If I'm working a school job, how many hours per week is that? Is that manageable for me? Have they, it's great if they say they're going to give you $10,000 in work study money, but is that actually doable with all the other commitments? So just look at all those different things, but the grant and scholarship are quite similar in practice. But again, do read if there's any conditions of that. If your college is giving you a grant, do they expect you to stay in that major? Is that grant taken away if you switch majors? Things like that. So those will be school specific, but good questions.
Okay, now we have a few more questions. I will try to finish by 3 o'clock. So are there college scholarships for students in school marching band? So can anybody comment if they know about athletic scholarships for marching band?
I'm not familiar specifically with scholarships for marching bands, but I wouldn't be surprised if there might be some opportunities out there. More likely might be a music scholarship at a school if you wanted to pursue music as a major. There could be some funding out there, but as someone who did marching band in high school and college, keep it up. It is a great pursuit. So I love that someone's doing that. But it's always worth searching, asking questions, and seeing if there's some funding sources out there. you might be able to parlay that into a leadership scholarship or something like that as well.
Okay, next question, and this is real. This one was repeated multiple times, so I'll attend that next. Do athletic scholarships cover everything or just a portion? And how early should you start applying for this? So anybody from the panel wants to talk on that, like athletic scholarships and whether they cover a portion, and then I'll give my contributions when you're done.
I would just say the concept of a full ride scholarship is quite rare, so sometimes people will use that term, like I got a full ride scholarship. Usually athletic scholarships or academic scholarships are going to be a portion of the tuition. They're not going to be all of it, so you are going to be responsible for part of it. That can also be complemented by academic scholarships, scholarships that you earn locally that you can take to any school, need-based financial aid, but often often it's not that you just get to walk into the campus and say, here I am, and there's no tuition. There's probably going to be some commitment there.
Okay, yes, so when it comes to athletic scholarships, honestly, whether it's full ride or not depends on a few factors. It depends on the sports you play. Most football scholarships are going to be full ride in the better schools. But of course, it all depends on what level of prospects you are. Because the higher level prospects, if you're like a 3-star, 2-star, and multiple colleges are looking for you, then I have somebody who, a girl who graduated with me from high school who was one of the better athletes in her set. Her son got a sports scholarship to Vanderbilt to play football. Now, Vanderbilt is an SEC school, so it's one of the top schools. For you to get there, you have to be one of the better athletes in the country at your position. But not only do they give you a full ride, they also give you a stipend on top of it, so they give you money. We know somebody who was the top, he came second in 100 meters in Texas in the state 6A, and he won 200 meters. He got a full ride and a stipend. That's track. But most of the other sports that are non-revenue sports, so not basketball or football, in some schools, volleyball, they're going to give you a partial scholarship, except you are one of the best in the country. And when I mean best in the country, you're talking about the kind of people who they are close to qualifying for Team USA, under 20s or under 18s, or when they're ranking you, and you know they have rankings, you're going to be one of the top people in the country. Then wherever you go, they're likely going to offer you a full ride, and then it goes down from there depending on your level. So that's the best thing for it. How early do you start applying? It's sports specific. Some sports start recruiting kids early. Like basketball, many people, like sophomore year, they're already getting offers, but nobody commits on the average until junior year at least, in almost any sport. That's just the average. So you'll commit in junior year, so you get plenty of offers, and it kind of gives you an idea, because if you're already getting offers from people as a sophomore, they're already offering you to come to camps. And then as a junior, you're already getting people recruiting and calling you based on your performance, because your coaches will be helping you submit your stuff to all the websites that the coaches look at. If people are already calling your parents or contacting you and telling you that they want you to come to their college, then you'll know by sophomore year, junior year, whether or not you're going to qualify. And when you start doing the campus visits, because you can do unofficial visits, you're allowed 5 official visits for sports. So if you start doing the unofficial visits and start talking to people who went to the school, talk to the coaches, they'll give you an idea as to where you qualify and what they'll give you based on how they're recruiting you. So that's pretty much it. And it also depends on the college. The more selective colleges have a higher standard for giving you a full ride versus the less selective colleges. So that's another thing to tell you. So that's that. Now, next thing, how can you convince your parents to allow you to go to the college of your dreams? So we'll ask the panel.
Okay, so again, everyone has different parents, right? So, like I said, there's not one size fits all. But if your parents are anything like my parents, they're very risk averse and they like facts. They don't they like someone that's serious and has a plan, right? So for anything I really wanted in life, and I was trying to get my parents to buy into the idea, I didn't just say, oh, I want to do this, right? Like, okay, for example, my career path. I didn't just say I wanted to be a consultant. I was like, to be very frank, I researched about consulting. I researched about the jobs I can do. I researched about the salaries. I researched about how you can get recruited. I had like a whole thing, right? So when I went to them, I could answer every question they had for me. So if you want to go to a school, I'm not saying they're going to say yes. But what I'm saying is when you're trying to tell them about that school, make sure you do your research, right? This is the one thing I tell anybody. Okay, so you're selling the school like you're selling yourself, right? So why should they let you go there? Think if you can't answer that question, chances are the answer is going to be a no.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. One more question. When deciding what major to choose, should I pick passion over prospects post-graduation? For example, I love zoology, animals, but I know it won't make me rich. So, can you touch on that, please?
Okay. I love fashion. I don't know if anyone can tell, but I love fashion. I can spend 2 hours a day on fashion. Will I become a fashion designer? No. That does not mean there are not people who are making money. There's Amina Muadi, right? She's like in her 30s. She's doing a great thing, and I'm happy for her. But you just have to ask yourself, realistically, what life do I want to live? Okay? The one thing my parents used to tell me when I was growing up, oh my gosh, this hat. The one thing my parents always told me growing up is, we will not do anything for you. Okay, this is how they said it, right? The lifestyle you're living right now, if we see any inkling that you cannot maintain that lifestyle, we will withdraw from you, right? You don't want to be, I used to do this. I used to go to vacation to Florida with my parents. I used to get dinner every weekend. I used to get new shoes every year, right? You don't want to be an I used to. So you like zoos, right? You like animals, that's great. When you have money, you can you can do a sabbatical, go to a safari in Kenya, you can see an elephant, you can see a giraffe, you can even pet it, you can go to India, you can ride an elephant, you can be one with nature, you can go to Canada, you can go to every zoo in every country, you understand, and be one with the animals. Why am I saying this? I don't know the zoology pathway, I don't know if it's lucrative, I don't know much about it. But any job you're looking for, you want to look at three things. One, am I good at it, right? Because and this is the one thing I just want to say to anyone, right? In the whole oh, I don't know about the school I'm going to go to and the focus on the school. Your school is a door opener to your career. How you are as a person is what takes you far, okay? So I could have gone to Harvard, right? But if I don't have people skills, if I don't know how to work under pressure, if I don't know how to collaborate, somebody that went to A&M could be an MD before me, could be a partner before me. Does that make any sense? So you have to work on your soft skills, right? You have to see the things you're strong at, number one. Number two, you have to look at the job outlook of what you're doing, right? And the saturation. And then number three, you have to ask yourself, can I do this when I am married? Okay? Is this a career I can sustain as a wife or a husband? Right? These are things you have to think about, right? What kind of mother do I want to be? What kind of father do I want to be? Those are the things you think about this now that you're single and you're young. Meditate on the life you want. What life do I want for myself? Do I want to be living paycheck to paycheck? Do I want to be comfortable? So if you really want zoology, I would say pray to God to let you go to the zoo this, December. There's a December zoo, I know there's lights. I have to go to the zoo every weekend, but I don't want to be mean, but passion is passion. Have your passion anytime. Your career is not your passion. I hope that makes any sense. Your career should not fulfill you. That's God, right? You should not idolize a career. It should be a way to get to your lifestyle. I hope that makes any sense. You can have, okay, so what if you have a passion for music tomorrow, and the next day you have a passion for, what is it called, fashion. Next day you have a passion for the skies. Passions are fleeting, right? That's why they say that you don't marry somebody because of you love them, right? Because when there's rent to pay, love won't do much for you, okay? I hope that's not too harsh.
Okay, anybody else from the panel want to comment on?
Yeah, so I think that there is a place for passion. I do think that, if you think about it, you graduate college at 21, and maybe if you go to grad school, you finish at 25, and then you work till, God giving you strength, 65, 70 before you retire. That's a long time to do something you don't like. So I think that there is a place for passion. Now, you have to be mindful that it's not a fleeting passion, that it's not, so you do have to think about the life you want, the things that give you joy. There are certain things like, if I see a spreadsheet, I come alive. Like, there are people that, my sister sees a spreadsheet and she shuts down. So, like, you have to there has to be a part of the job that keeps you and will give you that excitement to wake up each day and go to work for, what's that, 50 years almost. And I truly believe that where passion, ability, and the market need for something come together is where there's so yes, there are zoologists that don't make any money here, but I think that you can be a zoologist that's a thought leader and, influence the world and turn it around and even make, use it for Christ as well in the process. So I do think that the passion does add to make you excellent at it, which is really what I think brings the return, the money part of it is how you're able to excel at a certain thing. So yes, you may start out coming out of an Ivy League. I didn't finish my comment before because I heard all the snickers. You may start out 10% more, but yes, your performance, your sustained performance is going to show how you're going to be a better determinant of how you progress and your merit. Hallelujah. Your merit increases going forward. So, and I think that passion does come in a little bit in the process. So I'm not talking about, I love music today, and then, I love hip hop today, then tomorrow I love animals, then next day I love to dress up. It's really, there is, in each of us like a desire that God has put that, does help us, in that daily waking up to go to work. So I think pay attention to it. It does come out in what you're good at, what you're driven to, and how you're able to express yourself. So,
okay.
That's what. I just want to
go
add
ahead.
one more thing. Sorry, if I was too harsh, I'm sorry. But the one thing I just wanted to say is there are ways you can be tied to your passion without directly doing it. Right? You like animals. Do you know that there are airlines that ship animals to zoo? You can work for that airline, right? And you can help to negotiate, help to make that animal feel safe. There are ways you can help with animals without directly working in a zoo, if that makes any sense. And then if it is a passion, it could be a hobby, right? There are people who made bags, I know got famous overnight, and then their passion ended up making more than their career, and it could afford them to let that go. But to have no plan B, to have no risk control matrix, to not think of the opportunity costs, it's your personal decision. So.
I think finding that intersection of things that you enjoy, things that you're good at, and things that you can pursue a gainful career in is really the sweet spot, which both of our speakers have shared. And I would just say to also invite the wisdom of your family into that conversation too. So I, just my own experience, I thought I wanted to be a classroom teacher. many people in my family were educators, and so that was sort of what I thought I was going to do. The major that I would have picked for that would have locked me into a more narrow path, but in talking with my grandparents and kind of getting some more advice, my grandfather suggested English, and he said, you know, you really love to read, you really are a great writer and express yourselves. English is going to give you a wider path. It's still something you enjoy to do. You can do teaching, but you can also do other things. And so that's like one of the best life advice I've ever gotten, was just, you know, just pivoting or being open to a slightly different path. And, you know, that gave me career opportunities. It kept me in my passion, but it also gave me a career path. So just, you know, your elders and this community knows you well. They have such a rich array of experiences. So, you know, I think sometimes just humbling ourselves and asking our parents, our grandparents, our mentors, you know, what are some things that you see in me, or what are some talents that maybe I'm missing, or, you know, give me some advice about this. We're all in your corner. We're all rooting for you, and we want God's best for you. So as you invite that community in, we're excited to help you make that decision. It's your life to live, and it's your opportunities to take advantage of, but folks can come alongside you. So.
Pastor, it looked like you skipped a question. It seemed like it was from a kid. That's why I do want us to hit it. It was, what can I put in my essay to make it stand out? Yes.
Okay, yes, I think that came off the list. Yes, please identify that. I mean, answer that, address that question, which is, what can I put in my essay to make it stand out?
That's a great question. I think the more personal anecdotes and very specific anecdotes you can share help you become memorable and help you to stand out from other students. There's a few kind of common essays, you know, about I did this service project and I learned so much, and the people I was serving gave more to me than I gave to them, and you know, that's actually what I wrote my essay about, you know, and I thought it was so profound, and you know, that's a common essay. But if I had written something a little bit more about the bus ride from my hometown to the place where I went and the conversations we had, or if I had written about, just taken a more personal approach and talked about, you know, what I read an essay about what I think about when I swim laps. If you swim laps, like there's no other distractions, right? So what is that person thinking about when they swim laps? And as you read that essay, you started to really get to know the student, and you felt like you were in that moment with them. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's not about the topic, it's about what you learn about the student. So if you can really hone in on, what do I want these colleges to know? It could be, you know, that I am persistent and dedicated and driven, and also that, you know, I had this really meaningful experience in middle school that changed how I view the world. Or, you know, there's some things that you might want to work in to communicate who I am and who I am uniquely. And the more you can get those in. Then later, you know, think about that catchy intro that's going to draw your reader in, your closing thought, how you're going to make them leave them wanting to know you more. You know, there's all those aspects to it, but I think if you really start from the, what do I want the end result to be, then you can work backward into what's a framework that I can use for this. It could be, you know, a lot of different creative devices, but really you want them to know you, who's different from the person next to you and the person next to them.
This is also kind of a question, but I do want to see what you guys think about this from both like a career recruiting and a college recruiting, right? I would think that when I'm writing an essay, what I'm trying to portray is I would be a good alumni to your school, and I will be a great person to give you lots of money to your organization. And so in that, I think it's like showing that I can be a leader, I can collaborate, I can overcome hard times. I know how to be self-aware. I understand my shortcomings and I bettered them. And you ask yourself, okay, how did I do that? Talk to your mom, talk to your dad. Hey, could you give me an example of when I did this, this, and that? And they can help you start to jog your memory as to like how you are independent, how you are a leader, how you are able to solve problems, how unique you think, because your parents are your biggest cheerleader. So when they tell you these stuff, you can kind of put it all in. And if you're not good at English, 'cause like for me, like English is like I love resumes, I love essays, like that's just like my thing. But if you're like, I'm not that good at English, well, guess what? You have an English teacher who knows how to grade your work without changing your words. You know what I'm trying to say? They know how to tell you fix this, fix this, fix this, but they're not changing your voice, right? So when you have an essay, right, send it to your teacher and be like, hey, I'm writing an essay for my university. Do you mind just looking at it and giving me feedback? That way they can assess your essay without changing your heart and your voice and what you really wanted to say. I hope that makes sense.
Okay, one more question. We have a few more minutes. Thank you for staying this long. Best way to apply to college: early decision, early action, regular decision. Can we comment on that?
Early decision and early action are programs where you can apply early to the school, you find out early. Early action, you're not committed to the school if you are accepted, but early decision, you are. So if you play early decision, you're saying, I promise to come if you accept me. If you play early action, you're saying, I'm ready and prepared to apply early, and my application's not going to get better if I wait 2 months, but I'm not committed to enroll. And then regular decision, you apply in January, you find out in March. Everyone commits by May 1st to their school of choice. Sometimes there can be an advantage to applying early decision or early action if you're sort of on the bubble of acceptance, right? So if a school says, hey, this student applied early decision, we're not quite sure if we would want to accept her, but we're also thinking about our yield, and schools are judged on how many students say yes back to them. So if they know, okay, if we accept this student, she's great and she's committed, that helps our yield down the line, and we're going to be judged on that as a school. That can be a tipping factor. But I think you only want to apply early decision if you, as a family, have decided financially that that's going to be an appropriate decision for you, that you know that that's really your school of choice. I wouldn't apply early decision if you haven't at least visited. And early action or early decision, if your application is going to get stronger by waiting 2 months, you think another test score is going to help, showing some more solid grades in your senior year coursework, you're just not quite ready with your essay and you could use some more time, it's better to wait. You want to have the strongest application, whether it's early or regular. In general, whatever you're looking at with your process, I love for students to have an early action option that's in their less selective range. I love for a student to have an acceptance by the winter holidays so that they can go through the rest of the senior year knowing that I can go to college. College has accepted me. It might not be my top choice, but I know that I'm going somewhere. That can be really helpful as a family to just have that. So if you can work your process to apply to at least one school that you think is a pretty sure bet early, that's a great thing to have.
And then one more comment, I think we have 2 minutes more, I'd like to add is that I know some of those questions talked about the passions of children or people asking that athletic scholarship versus academic scholarship. One thing, especially for the parents of children that are a little younger, is that my encouragement to you is watch the child, look at what they are good at, and start to encourage them to do things that go along with their talent. So if you have a child, they can read very, very early. Make sure that you start getting them involved in camps that involve like reading and writing and things like that at a very early age. If you have a child who you went to the neighborhood swimming pool, and the child, you didn't really even have to teach them to swim, and they could start swimming relatively quickly. You know that get the child involved in swimming early, because you know that child has a talent at it. If you have a child that can juggle a ball on their foot without looking when they are 2 or 3 years old, Invest in soccer. You know, if you have a child who is so good at computers that it seems as if they're a prodigy at computers, get them involved in coding classes very, very early. Watch your children. That doesn't mean they're going to be a coder. But honestly, whatever is their passion and they're talented at is going to keep on opening doors for more things. But watch your child, see what they like to do, and encourage them at what they're doing. And involve them in many things, you know, when they're children. One of the things I always tell people in churches, and we've run out of time, is your summer period is not meant for sleeping. Summer is meant to do stuff, especially when your children are younger. So invest time and energy in it. And you as a parent, you can't be tired. This is not the time for you to be sleeping as a parent. Even if you are tired, wake up and figure out how you're going to get those children doing stuff. I remember many times my children will look at me when we're coming from activities and they'll be concerned, Daddy, are you not too tired? I'll say, look, this is the time for me to be driving you to all these places. I'm tired. Yes, I'm tired, but we need to get this stuff done in order to get you ahead. So use that time to get them involved in numerous activities, especially the ones you can afford, because there are so many resources around that they're looking for people. So get them involved in these things. So when they try many different things, sooner or later you'll see the stuff they stand out in. And that will help you guide you. And the way America works is all pyramidal. So once you're good at something, honestly, the stuff will find you. You will get somebody who will tell you, yeah, your child needs to be going to this place. They're wasting their time here. They will get better competition over here. They will get better coding over there. They will get better experience over there. And it starts building up on each other. And it helps your child get the additional things they need to be able to succeed in life. So anybody has any other thing they want to comment about? Okay. Thank you very much for the time. I want to appreciate the speakers. Let's give the Lord a hand for them. Also, Sister Kani, her husband, Dr. Udo, is here too, Dr. Teka Udo. So thank you, Dr. Teka. They've also sent, their children they have a child in college. They have another one who's going to be applying very soon. So thank you for supporting us and supporting Sister Kani in doing this. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for staying. I know it's a big encouragement to us that there are so many parents who are invested in their children's future, and that's the only reason why we do all this. A big thank you to the speakers also and the panelists for helping us. Let's give the Lord a hand for them, and we'll say a word of prayer, and we'll say a word of blessing. Father, we thank you for everybody who has come here. We thank you for this proceedings today. Take all the glory and honor in the name of Jesus. Thank you for those who have spoken and been panel discussions. My prayer for them is that their horn will be exalted like the horn of the unicorn. They will be anointed with fresh oil in the name of Jesus, that your grace will abound to them, so they lacking in nothing will always abound unto every good work. For all of us, you have said in your word that we should seek first your kingdom and his righteousness, and all other things will be added to us. So help us to seek forth your kingdom. Help us to seek forth your kingdom purposes, and all the things we need will also be added to us. But you also have told us that we should bring up a child in the way that they should go, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. The Hebrew tells us that means bringing up the child according to their own natural inclinations and natural bents. And when they are old, they will not depart from what we have set them to do. So, Father, that means spending time. That means observing these children and steering them along that intersection of their passion and the place where they can be most productive. Father, we need wisdom for this, and we ask you to give us that wisdom in the name of Jesus. As we go forth, bless us, O Lord, keep us, show us favor in the mighty name of Jesus. In Jesus' name we have prayed. Amen. Let's share the grace again. May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, The love of God and the sweet fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us now and forevermore. Amen. And surely goodness and mercy shall follow us all the days of our lives, and we shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever and ever. Amen.